The galaxy was on the edge of war. For years, tensions had risen between Earth and the Rillian Empire, an advanced alien civilization known for their strength and technology. The Rillian Empire controlled vast regions of space, and Earth's resources were beginning to dwindle. Negotiations had failed countless times, and the situation had become critical. The next step could be the destruction of entire planets. In the midst of this, Lieutenant Marcus Hayes, a decorated soldier of the Earth Alliance, found himself thrust into a role he never expected: Peace Ambassador. He was to represent humanity in a final effort to avoid war. But the terms of peace were not as simple as a handshake or treaty. The Rillian Queen, Kerithar, was a ruler unlike any other. Tall, powerful, and regal, she commanded respect with every step. Her empire was the most feared in the galaxy, and she ruled with an iron fist. Despite her seemingly cold and unyielding demeanor, Kerithar had been the one to reach out, offering a chance for peace, but with a strange and unsettling condition. Lieutenant Hayes must marry her. Marcus stood before the Queen in the grand hall of the Rillian Palace. The room was massive, with towering columns and alien designs that seemed to pulse with an energy all their own. The Queen's presence was overwhelming, her golden eyes fixed on him as she explained her terms. Her voice was calm, but there was no mistaking the power behind it. "This marriage will unite our peoples, ensuring peace between our empires," Queen Kerithar said, her voice echoing through the vast hall. "The galaxy will see the strength of our alliance. It is not just a symbol, it is a necessity." Marcus could hardly believe what he was hearing. Marriage to an alien queen. The idea seemed absurd, yet there was no mistaking the seriousness in her tone. The fate of billions of lives hung in the balance, and if this was the price for peace, Marcus knew he had little choice but to agree. He looked into Kerithar's eyes, trying to find a sign of softness, of humanity, but all he saw was the cold determination of a leader. This wasn't about love or attraction. This was about survival. "I don't understand," Marcus said, his voice steady despite the storm brewing inside him. "Why me? Why a human?" Kerithar's gaze softened ever so slightly. "The prophecy speaks of a union between our two species, one that will bring balance and strength to the galaxy. You, Lieutenant Hayes, are the chosen one." Marcus wanted to argue, to refuse, but the reality of the situation crushed him. Earth needed peace, and if this was the price, what else could he do? He wasn't a diplomat or a politician, but he was a soldier. And sometimes soldiers had to make sacrifices. "All right," Marcus said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'll do it. I'll marry you." The Queen nodded, her expression unreadable. The deal was struck. Peace would come, but it would come at a price that no one had expected. As Marcus left the grand hall, his heart was heavy. He had no idea what awaited him, but one thing was certain: his life would never be the same again. The next few days were a blur for Lieutenant Marcus Hayes. After his shocking agreement to marry Queen Kerithar, everything seemed to move at a dizzying pace. His life as a soldier had always been about missions, strategy, and survival. Now, he was thrown into the world of royalty, diplomacy, and political maneuvering. The Rillian Palace, with its massive stone walls and strange alien architecture, felt like a different world. Marcus had never seen anything like it before. The palace corridors were lined with intricate carvings that seemed to come alive with the flicker of lights. He walked through these halls, unsure of what to expect next. His entire being was filled with unease. He had agreed to this for the sake of peace, but he couldn't shake the feeling that he was about to make an irreversible mistake. The first time Marcus saw Queen Kerithar after their agreement, she was standing in the royal courtyard, surrounded by her advisors. Her long silver hair flowed down her back like a waterfall, and her regal robes shimmered under the twin suns of the Rillian homeworld. Despite the intimidating aura she carried, there was something undeniably beautiful about her, something that made Marcus pause for a moment, though he quickly pushed the thought aside. Carithar turned to face him as he approached, her golden eyes piercing through him. There was no trace of emotion on her face, only the quiet strength of a ruler who had been through countless battles, both in the field and in the court. "Lieutenant Hayes," she said, her voice steady and controlled. "You will be my consort. Together, we will lead our people to a future of peace and prosperity." The words hung in the air like an unspoken command. Marcus could feel the weight of them pressing down on him. This wasn't just about the marriage, it was about the future of two species. But the more he thought about it, the more it felt like a strange dream he couldn't wake up from. "I never imagined this would happen," Marcus replied, his voice steady, though his mind was racing. "I thought I was just here to talk, to negotiate a treaty." Carithar regarded him silently for a moment, her gaze unwavering. "Peace comes with sacrifices. Sometimes the price is greater than we expect. But the union of our two people will be a powerful symbol. It is the only way forward." Marcus nodded, though doubt still gnawed at him. He had seen wars fought over less, and yet here he was, about to marry an alien queen. He could hardly believe it. Yet, as he looked into Carithar's eyes, he saw something else, something deeper. It wasn't just a political move for her. She genuinely believed in what she was saying. "Do you believe this will work?" Marcus asked, a question that had been plaguing him since the moment the marriage proposal had been made. Carithar's lips curved into a small, almost imperceptible smile. "I have no choice but to believe it. The future of my people depends on it." Her words resonated in Marcus's chest. He knew she was right. If this marriage brought peace, if it united their people, then it would be worth it. He didn't know what lay ahead, but for the first time since he had arrived on Rilia, he felt a small flicker of hope. In the days that followed, Marcus's life began to change in ways he hadn't anticipated. His days were filled with meetings, royal ceremonies, and getting to know the customs of the Rillian people. He quickly realized how different their culture was, different from Earth's, and different from anything he had ever imagined. But despite the cultural gaps, one thing became clear. This marriage, this union, had the potential to be more than just a political move. It could be the beginning of something new, something that could save both their worlds. The path ahead was uncertain, but Marcus was no longer just a soldier. He was a key part of an intergalactic alliance. And though he couldn't yet see how it would all unfold, he knew he had made the right choice. As the days passed, Marcus found himself immersed in the complexities of royal life on Rilia. His routine had changed completely. He spent his days attending meetings with Rillian diplomats, participating in ceremonies, and learning about the intricate customs of the alien empire. Every moment was filled with new challenges, and every decision seemed to carry the weight of two civilizations. But it wasn't just the new surroundings that kept Marcus on edge. It was the reactions of the people around him. While some of the Rillian citizens admired his bravery for agreeing to marry their queen, many others viewed him with distrust. A human soldier marrying their queen. It was an unheard-of alliance, one that stirred unease among both the Rillian court and the military. Marcus could feel the tension in the air. There were whispers whenever he walked through the halls of the palace. Some Rillian warriors glared at him with suspicion, while others simply avoided making eye contact. The queen had made it clear that this marriage was not just about political strategy. It was a symbol of unity. Yet, in the eyes of many, it seemed more like an insult. How could a human soldier bring anything of value to a queen who had ruled a powerful empire for centuries? The most unsettling part, however, was the divide it caused among his own people. Back on Earth, Marcus had been a hero. He was well respected and admired for his dedication to protecting humanity. But now, as he prepared for a union with an alien queen, some of his fellow soldiers saw him as a traitor. They had been on the front lines, fighting against alien forces for years. To them, Marcus's decision to marry the enemy's ruler was a betrayal of everything they had fought for. In private conversations with his comrades, Marcus began to feel the sting of their judgment. They accused him of abandoning Earth's cause for his own gain. some even going as far as to call him a pawn in the Queen's scheme. They didn't understand the weight of the situation, how the marriage was the only way to avoid a war that could wipe out millions of lives. They didn't understand the political intricacies, the delicate balance he was trying to maintain. "You're making a mistake," Marcus, his old friend, Captain Jason, told him during a rare moment alone. "This isn't peace, it's manipulation. Carithar is using you to cement her power, and you're falling for it." Marcus sighed, feeling the weight of the conflict in his chest. He had no simple answers. It wasn't as easy as saying yes or no. The decision wasn't just about him. It was about humanity's survival, and he couldn't back down now. "I'm not doing this for me, Jason," Marcus said, his voice low. "I'm doing it for everyone. If I have to marry her to stop a war, then I will." Jason shook his head. "I hope you know what you're doing." Marcus didn't have all the answers, but he knew one thing for certain. Peace was fragile, and this was the only path forward. Still, the doubts weighed heavily on his mind. He had chosen to be part of something much bigger than himself, but it wasn't an easy burden to bear. As Marcus spent more time with Queen Carithar, he began to understand the complexities of her position. She wasn't just a ruler. She was a leader who had inherited the weight of an entire empire's future. The pressures she faced were unimaginable, and while her people were divided over their union, Carithar remained steadfast. But that didn't make the situation any easier for Marcus. The rift between him and his people, the distrust from the Rillian court, and the uncertainty of the future all loomed over him like an unshakable cloud. Marcus had never felt more isolated, yet he knew this was only the beginning. What came next would define not only his future, but the future of both Earth and Rillia. And he couldn't afford to fail. The rift was widening, and it was up to him to find a way to bridge it. The days in the Rillian palace continued to blur together for Marcus. As the marriage ceremony drew closer, he found himself spending more time with Queen Carithar. Initially, their interactions had been formal and distant, she the powerful queen, and he the reluctant soldier. But now something had changed. There was a growing understanding between them, an unexpected bond that neither of them had anticipated. Carithar, though still a queen, began to show a different side of herself. During their private meetings, away from the prying eyes of her advisors, she was more relaxed, less the commanding ruler and more the person she rarely allowed anyone to see. Her sharp eyes softened when she spoke to Marcus, and he found himself listening to her in a way he hadn't before. One evening, as they walked through the palace gardens, Carithar's voice broke the silence. "I never asked for this," she said quietly, looking up at the twin moons hanging low in the sky. "This marriage, this alliance. But I have no choice. My people are at the edge of destruction, and the prophecy says only this union can save us." Marcus turned to face her, surprised by the vulnerability in her voice. He had always seen her as a ruler, unshakable and unyielding. But now he could see the weight of the crown on her shoulders, the burden of her empire's future. "You didn't choose this?" Marcus asked, his voice softer than he intended. "But you're the queen. Doesn't that mean you control everything?" Carithar shook her head slowly, her silver hair glinting in the moonlight. "I control much, yes, but not everything. There are things in my world, my empire, that even I cannot change. The prophecy is one of them. It speaks of this union, and I must fulfill it, or risk losing everything." Marcus understood. She wasn't just a ruler trying to gain power. She was a leader bound by ancient forces, fighting for the survival of her people. Her situation wasn't as simple as it seemed, and for the first time, Marcus saw her as more than just a queen. She was a person, one who carried a burden he could not even imagine. As they continued to walk through the gardens, Marcus found himself thinking about his own situation. He, too, was burdened by responsibility. His choice to marry Carithar wasn't just about political strategy. It was about saving lives. His life, his country, and now the future of an entire galaxy hung in the balance. "You don't have to do this alone, you know," Marcus said after a long pause, his words genuine. "We're in this together, whether we like it or not. If we're going to make this work, we have to trust each other." Carithar glanced at him, her golden eyes reflecting a deep sadness. "Trust doesn't come easily to me, Marcus. My people, my empire, they demand loyalty, but they are quick to turn on me if I show any weakness." Marcus nodded. He understood that fear. As a soldier, he had seen how quickly loyalty could turn to doubt in the face of adversity. But there was something different about Carithar. Beneath her icy exterior, he saw a leader who truly cared for her people, someone who was willing to make personal sacrifices for the greater good. "I understand," Marcus said, "but maybe we can start by trusting each other." The Queen's eyes lingered on him for a moment longer, and Marcus saw something shift in her gaze. It was small, almost imperceptible, but it was there, a flicker of warmth. In that moment, Marcus realized that this marriage, this unlikely alliance, could be more than just a political necessity. It could be the beginning of something real, something that would change both their lives and the lives of their people forever. As they stood there in the moonlit garden, the bond between them deepened. It wasn't just a duty anymore, it was becoming something more. And though Marcus didn't know what the future held, he knew one thing for certain: they would face it together. The peace between Earth and the Rillian Empire was still fragile, and Marcus could feel the weight of it pressing on him with each passing day. The wedding was approaching, but before that could happen, he and Queen Carithar had to prove their commitment to the alliance, not just to their people, but to themselves. There was no room for failure. The Rillian court, still divided over the marriage, demanded that Marcus prove his worth beyond being a political pawn. The Queen's advisors made it clear. He needed to demonstrate that he was capable of leading alongside Carithar. His role was no longer just to marry her. It was to show the galaxy that this union was more than just a strategic move. Marcus had to earn the respect of the Rillian people, and more importantly, their military. The Queen called for a series of trials, ancient tests of strength, intelligence, and leadership, meant to prove the worth of anyone who sought to join the royal family. The first trial would take place in the arena of Rillia, a vast open space used for centuries to test warriors and leaders. It was a brutal arena, where both physical and mental endurance were tested to the limit. Marcus stood at the entrance of the arena, feeling the heavy eyes of the Rillian warriors upon him. They had already heard the whispers, the doubts that surrounded him. Some thought he was too weak, too human to survive the trials. Others believed he was a pawn, a tool to be used and discarded. But Marcus wasn't here to prove himself to them. He was here to prove to Carithar that he was worthy of standing by her side. The first test was physical. He had to face a Rillian warrior in hand-to-hand combat. The warrior, tall and muscular, with sharp, glowing eyes, was everything Marcus had feared. He was a skilled fighter, known for his strength and ruthless precision. Marcus, on the other hand, was a soldier trained for strategy, not for close combat with an alien of this caliber. As the battle began, Marcus was quickly put on the defensive. His opponent moved with lightning speed, striking with powerful blows that left Marcus struggling to keep up. The crowd roared with excitement, eager to see if the human could survive. But Marcus wasn't about to give up. He used his quick thinking, dodging and countering when he could, using his agility to avoid the warrior's strikes. For a moment, it seemed like the fight was lost. Marcus stumbled back, barely able to stand. His vision blurred, his body aching with each breath. But then, something shifted. He remembered the stakes, the peace, the future of both their worlds, and with a burst of adrenaline, he charged forward. With a swift move, he disarmed his opponent, pinning him to the ground. The crowd fell silent as Marcus stood over the warrior, breathing heavily. The trial wasn't just about strength, it was about resilience. And Marcus had shown that he was willing to fight for what mattered, no matter the odds. The Rillian warriors, though still skeptical, began to murmur in approval. After the battle, Carithar stood among the crowd, watching intently. She had always respected strength, but now she saw something else in Marcus, something she hadn't expected. He wasn't just a soldier, he was a leader. The second trial was mental, testing Marcus's ability to make quick decisions under pressure. He faced a series of complex strategic challenges where he had to command Rillian forces in simulated battles. The stakes were high, as the wrong move could lead to disaster. But Marcus handled it with ease, using the same tactical mind that had served him well in battles back home. By the end of the trials, Marcus had earned the respect of the Rillian military. But it wasn't just the warriors who were watching. The entire empire was paying attention, and his actions had shown them that he was more than just a human. He was a leader who could stand beside their queen. As the trials came to an end, Marcus stood next to Carithar, their bond now stronger than ever. The people of Rillia were watching, and for the first time, they saw Marcus not as a foreigner, but as a part of their future. This was just the beginning of their journey. And though the challenges ahead were still unknown, Marcus was ready to face them. Together with Carithar, he would lead their people to a new era of peace. As Marcus continued to settle into his role by Queen Carithar's side, the mysteries of Rillian culture and power began to unravel before him. The trials were over, and now Marcus found himself in a new position, not just the queen's consort, but a key figure in the survival of both their species. There was no turning back now. Yet with each passing day, he sensed that there were still things he didn't understand, things Carithar hadn't shared with him. One evening, after a long day of discussions with Rillian diplomats, Marcus was invited to the queen's private chambers. It was a rare invitation, and he knew it wasn't just to discuss politics. Carithar had always been open with him about the struggles of leadership, but there was a growing tension in her eyes, a silent burden she had carried alone for so long. As Marcus entered, he saw the queen standing near a large, ancient-looking stone pedestal, her back to him. The soft glow of the room's lights reflected off her silvery hair, making her appear almost ethereal. "Come in, Marcus." Carithar's voice was calm, but there was an edge to it he hadn't heard before. "There is something I must show you." Curious and a bit concerned, Marcus stepped forward. He could feel the weight of her words. The air was thick with anticipation, and Marcus had a sense that the queen was about to reveal something crucial to their future. Carithar turned, her eyes meeting his. There was a quiet sadness in her gaze, something that told him the Rillian Empire had more secrets than he had ever imagined. "This artifact," Carithar said, gesturing to the stone pedestal. "It is called the Heartstone. It holds the power of our ancestors, a power that was meant to be passed down to the rulers of Rillia. But it is incomplete. To unlock its full potential, I need a bond, a connection with someone who is not Rillian." Marcus stared at the stone, which was etched with strange symbols and glowing faintly with an inner light. It seemed ancient, yet alive with energy. He stepped closer, his heart racing with confusion and curiosity. "You've never told me about this," Marcus said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I couldn't," Carithar replied. "The Heartstone is linked to our prophecy, the one that speaks of a union between our two species. I didn't understand it fully until recently. It was only after I met you that I realized what it meant. Our bond, the marriage, it isn't just a political act. It's the key to unlocking the power of the Heartstone, and through it, the future of my empire." Marcus was taken aback. "But why me? Why not another Rillian?" Carithar's expression softened, though there was still a hint of unease in her eyes. "Because the prophecy foretold that only through the union of a Rillian and a human would the Heartstone's power be fully realized. It is not just a symbol of peace, it is the very force that will save my people." Marcus stood there in silence, trying to comprehend the weight of what Carithar had just revealed. This wasn't just about a marriage for peace. It was about something much larger, something that could change the course of history for both their worlds. "The Heartstone," Marcus began, his mind racing. "So if we unlock its power, We can save the Rillian Empire. Carithar nodded. Yes, but there is more. The Heartstone holds the power to heal not just Rillia, but the entire galaxy. It will bring balance to the chaos that has plagued us for centuries. But it can only be unlocked through our bond. Our marriage is the key. The realization hit Marcus hard. His role had never just been about peace. It had always been about saving both their peoples. The weight of the task ahead was heavier than anything he had ever faced on the battlefield. But he also understood one thing. This marriage, this bond, was not just an alliance for the sake of politics. It was a partnership that held the fate of the galaxy in its hands. He looked at Carithar, his heart filled with a new sense of purpose. Then we'll do it. We'll unlock the Heartstone's power. Together. Carithar's eyes flickered with a mix of hope and determination. She nodded. Yes, together. But there is much to be done before that can happen. The journey will be difficult, and there are those who will try to stop us. Marcus knew the road ahead would not be easy. The stakes were higher than ever, and the challenges they would face were unknown. But for the first time, he felt a deep sense of conviction. He wasn't just fighting for peace. He was fighting for a future, for a galaxy that could be healed by their unity. As the two of them stood there in the quiet of the chamber, Marcus knew that this was only the beginning. Together, they would face whatever came next, and together, they would change the future of their worlds. As the days passed, the tension around Marcus grew. The weight of his new life as the consort of Queen Carithar was heavier than he had anticipated. While he had always known that this union was far from ordinary, the truth about the Heartstone made everything seem even more complicated. Their bond was the key to unlocking the galaxy's future, but it came with its own set of risks. Not only were the stakes higher than ever, but so was the pressure. Marcus found himself increasingly divided, torn between his loyalty to Earth and his growing connection to Carithar and the Rillian Empire. The human government had made it clear that they were watching, waiting to see how things would unfold. Some of his former comrades were already questioning his choices, calling him a traitor, while others remained hopeful that this unusual alliance would succeed. It seemed like he was being pulled in two directions, one towards his home, and the other towards a future he had never imagined. Carithar, too, was facing pressure from her own people. While some of the Rillian factions supported the marriage, others were less convinced that a union with a human soldier was in their best interest. There were whispers within the palace, rumors of betrayal, and questions about the true motivations behind Marcus's role in this alliance. To many, he was still an outsider, someone who could never truly understand the complexities of Rillian politics and culture. His position as consort was still seen as a weakness in some eyes, and Carithar's decision to marry him was increasingly questioned by her advisors. One evening, as Marcus and Carithar met privately in the Queen's chambers, the weight of their shared responsibilities seemed to hang in the air. "I'm sorry," Carithar said, breaking the silence. "I never meant to place you in this position. This marriage, this prophecy, it's too much to ask of anyone, especially of you." Marcus looked at her, surprised by the vulnerability in her voice. He had never seen her so unsure, so human. "I didn't sign up for any of this, Carithar," Marcus replied, his voice steady. "But we're in this together now. There's no turning back. You and I, we've both got a job to do, and I'll do whatever it takes to see it through." Carithar looked down at the ground, her eyes reflecting the weight of the world. "I wish I could believe that, but I see the doubt in your eyes, Marcus. The same doubt I feel in my own heart. This marriage, this alliance, I don't know if we can make it work. If we fail, we'll lose everything." Her words hit Marcus like a punch to the gut. For all her power and wisdom, Carithar was just as scared as he was. She was carrying the hopes of an entire empire on her shoulders, and she had no idea whether their bond would truly unlock the Heartstone's power or destroy them both. "You're not alone in this, Carithar," Marcus said quietly, moving closer to her. I might not know everything about your world, about your people, but I know about fighting. I know about sacrifice. And I know that we have a chance, if we trust each other." Carithar met his gaze, and for the first time in a long while, she smiled. It was a small, cautious smile, but it was there. "You're right," she said softly. "We don't know what will happen, but we have to try. For the future of our people, we have to try." The words hung between them, a promise of what was to come. But the road ahead was not easy. The doubt still lingered in the corners of Marcus's mind, and Carithar's people were not yet fully convinced of his worth. The forces against them were growing, and time was running out. As the evening wore on, Marcus felt the battle inside him intensify. He wasn't sure if he was making the right choices, if this alliance would ever succeed. But one thing was certain. He was in it now, and there was no going back. He had to fight, not just for the peace of the galaxy, but for the trust he had built with Carithar. It was a battle within, one that he would have to face, not just on the battlefield, but in his heart. And in the end, Marcus knew that the only way forward was together. The peaceful days that Marcus had hoped for were slipping through his fingers like sand. With each passing moment, the weight of the galaxy's future pressed harder on him. The trial was still fresh in his mind, but a new, more dangerous challenge was now on the horizon. Queen Carithar had been receiving alarming reports from her spies. A rogue faction within the Rillian Empire, one that had always been resistant to the marriage between her and Marcus, was preparing to strike. They were determined to stop the alliance before it could bring the power of the Heartstone into their hands. The queen had always known that not everyone in her empire would support her decision. The Rillian military was proud, traditional, and stubborn. Many had seen this union as a sign of weakness, a betrayal of their ancient customs. There had been whispers of a rebellion for weeks. But now, the rebellion was real, and it was gaining strength fast. Their plan was simple: to assassinate Marcus, end the alliance, and return Rillia to its former ways, free from the influence of humanity. Marcus stood beside Carithar in her war room, the tension in the air almost suffocating. The map on the wall showed the movements of enemy forces within the empire, moving quickly toward the capital. Time was running out. "I never wanted this war," Carithar said quietly, her eyes fixed on the map. "But it seems it's the only way to secure our future." Marcus watched her closely, sensing the weariness in her voice. He had never seen her so vulnerable. The queen had always carried herself with an unshakable confidence, but now he saw cracks in her armor. This wasn't just about saving the Rillian Empire. This was about protecting everything she had worked for, and everything she had come to value, including their bond. "You don't have to face this alone," Marcus said, his voice firm. "We've made it this far together. We'll fight through this storm." Carithar turned toward him, her golden eyes meeting his. "The rebellion is only part of the problem. They are not the only ones who will oppose us. There are those in your government who still don't trust me, Marcus. Some of your people want to see me fail. If they learn about the Heartstone, they will do everything they can to stop us." Marcus clenched his fists. His loyalty had always been to Earth, but now it was torn. He had promised Carithar that he would fight by her side, and that promise weighed heavily on him. He couldn't let her face this battle alone, but he knew the risks. If word of the Heartstone and its power got out, both Earth and the Rillian Empire could be thrown into chaos. "We'll make sure they don't learn about it." "Not yet," Marcus replied. "We have to stay focused. The rebellion has to be dealt with first. Once that's over, we can figure out the rest." Carithar nodded, but Marcus could see the doubt in her eyes. The road ahead wasn't clear, and their enemies were everywhere. Still, they couldn't afford to hesitate. The rebellion had to be crushed before it could gain too much ground. "Gather the troops," Carithar ordered, her voice regaining its strength. "We march at dawn." Marcus felt a surge of pride for her. Despite everything, Carithar was a leader, and she would not back down. She was not the cold, unapproachable queen he had met at the beginning of this journey. She had become someone he could trust, someone he had come to care for deeply. As they prepared for battle, Marcus couldn't help but think about how far they had come. The journey had been full of unexpected twists, but it had also forged a bond stronger than either of them had imagined. This wasn't just about the Heartstone or about peace. It was about standing together against the forces that sought to tear them apart. The rebellion was coming, and Marcus knew that this battle would be unlike anything they had faced before. But one thing was certain. No matter the odds, he and Carithar would face it together. The storm was coming, but they would fight through it, side by side. The night before the battle was the quietest Marcus had ever experienced on R'lyeh. In the Grand Palace, there was no sound of music or laughter, only the heavy silence that weighed down on everyone preparing for the coming storm. Marcus sat alone in his quarters, staring out at the dark horizon. The moonlight bathed the palace in a soft glow, but it couldn't lift the sense of dread hanging in the air. Tomorrow, they would face the rebellion. Tomorrow, everything would change. Despite his preparation, Marcus felt a deep unease. The rebellion had been swift, and their forces were larger than anyone had anticipated. He knew that the only way to stop them now was to strike first. But the risk was enormous. If the rebels succeeded, the future of the R'lyeh Empire and humanity's peace would be shattered. Carithar's words echoed in his mind. If we fail, we lose everything. Her people, her empire, her dreams, all on the line. It was more than just a battle for survival. This was a battle for a new future, one that could either unite their worlds or divide them forever. Marcus rose from his seat, his mind racing. He needed to talk to Carithar. He needed to remind her, and himself, that they were in this together. They couldn't afford to falter now. He made his way to her chambers, his footsteps silent on the marble floors. When he reached her door, he hesitated for a moment before knocking. Carithar had been the picture of strength throughout the entire ordeal, but he knew the weight of the crown was beginning to wear on her. She had never asked for this burden, but she had taken it upon herself for the sake of her people. Marcus admired her more than he had ever admitted to himself. The door opened quietly, and Carithar stood before him, her expression unreadable. She had already donned her armor, the silver plates glinting in the dim light. She looked every bit the queen, strong, unyielding, but there was a softness in her eyes that betrayed her true feelings. "Marcus," she said softly, stepping aside to let him in. "I knew you would come." "I couldn't sleep," Marcus admitted, his voice low. "I needed to see you. Tomorrow, it could change everything." Carithar nodded, her gaze distant. "Yes, it could. But no matter the outcome, we have done everything we can. We have fought for what is right. There is nothing more to fear." Her words were meant to comfort him, but Marcus couldn't help but feel the weight of them. The rebellion was closing in, and if they didn't act fast, they would be caught in the crossfire. They had both done everything they could, but it wasn't enough yet. Tomorrow's battle would decide their fate. "I'm not afraid," Marcus said after a pause, his eyes meeting hers, "but I'm scared of losing you. I've come to care for you, Carithar, not just as a queen, but as someone I trust." Her eyes softened, and she took a step closer to him. "I care for you too, Marcus. I never expected to find this kind of connection with someone. You've shown me what true strength looks like, and I'm grateful for that. No matter what happens, we've already changed the course of history." A brief silence passed between them, filled only with the sound of their breathing. For the first time since the beginning of this journey, Marcus felt the weight of their bond. It wasn't just about politics or peace anymore. It was about them, two people from different worlds, finding a way to stand together in the face of impossible odds. "I'm with you, Carithar," Marcus said, his voice steady. "Whatever comes next, we face it together." She smiled, a rare moment of peace amidst the chaos. "Yes, together." As Marcus left her chambers, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. The battle ahead would be difficult, But he no longer doubted their ability to face it. The strength of their bond was stronger than any enemy they could face. Together, they could change the future. The storm was coming, but Marcus and Carithar were ready. They had no choice but to stand strong. The moment of truth had arrived. The battle had begun at dawn, the clash of forces shaking the very ground beneath Marcus's feet. The rebellion was fierce, but Marcus stood firm, his resolve strengthened by the trust and bond he shared with Carithar. Together, they had made it this far, and now they were fighting not just for survival, but for the future of their worlds. The Rillian forces, led by Carithar, fought with precision, their strength matched only by the determination of their queen. Marcus, by her side, led the human soldiers who had quickly adapted to the unfamiliar terrain of Rillia. He had proven himself during the trials, and now, in the heat of battle, his leadership was undeniable. The enemies they faced were relentless, but the unity between the two armies, Rillian and human, was something no one had expected. They fought not just for their leaders, but for the promise of peace. Carithar stood at the front, her presence commanding as always, but Marcus could see the toll the battle was taking on her. She had never wanted this war, but she fought with everything she had to protect her people. The weight of her crown was heavy, but she carried it with pride, as only a true leader could. They had been fighting for hours, with no sign of stopping. The air was thick with smoke and dust, and the battlefield was littered with the remnants of the clash. Marcus could hear the sound of weapons clashing, of the shouts of warriors on both sides. His heart pounded in his chest, but his focus remained clear. He had one goal: to protect Carithar and ensure the rebellion was crushed. As the battle raged on, Marcus and Carithar found themselves facing the leader of the rebellion, a powerful Rillian general named Vrith. He had been the one who had sparked the dissent in the Empire, the one who believed that a human could never truly rule alongside the Queen. Now he was determined to end the alliance for good. Vrith's eyes burned with fury as he faced Carithar, his weapon raised in challenge. "You have betrayed our people, Queen Carithar. This human will destroy everything we'd fought for." Marcus stepped forward, his voice steady but firm. "You don't understand, Vrith. This isn't about destruction. This is about unity. Humanity and Rillia, together, can bring peace to the galaxy. But you're too blinded by hatred to see that." For a moment, there was only silence. Then, without warning, Vrith lunged at Marcus, their weapons clashing in a shower of sparks. The battle between them was fierce, each blow harder than the last. But Marcus fought with everything he had, not just for himself, but for the future he was building with Carithar. Finally, with a swift move, Marcus disarmed Vrith, sending his weapon flying across the battlefield. Vrith fell to the ground, his eyes filled with disbelief. Marcus stood over him, breathing heavily but unshaken. "This fight is over," Marcus said, his voice calm but resolute. "Your people have lost. It's time to accept the future." Vrith, defeated and broken, could only glare at him. The rebellion had been crushed. The future of Rillia and Earth, once uncertain, now had a chance to grow and thrive. As the battle wound down, Carithar joined Marcus on the field, her eyes meeting his with a mixture of relief and gratitude. The war was over, but the real work had only just begun. Together, they walked back to the palace, the sounds of the battlefield fading behind them. The air was clearer now, the weight of the conflict lifting. The Heartstone, still hidden within the walls of the palace, was no longer just a symbol. It was the key to their future, a future they would build together. The galaxy had changed, and so had they. Marcus and Carithar, once strangers bound by fate, had become partners in every sense of the word. Their union was not just a political necessity anymore. It was a bond that had withstood the fiercest of battles. As they stood side by side, looking toward the horizon, Marcus knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The beginning of a new era had arrived, one where both humanity and the Rillian Empire could flourish. And for the first time in a long while, Marcus felt hope for the future. The storm had passed, and now they would rebuild together.